We are here, and it is the Fight IQ UFC 305 preview show. With me, as always, is Sun Tzu, but you might notice there is somebody who is not here. That is Mr. Drake Burton himself, who is currently sailing around the world in parts unknown, which is only half a joke. He is on a cruise there. He wanted to make it in, but unfortunately, some obligations on the cruise came up, and he will not be with us for this evening. But he has requested that I read off of his takes for the article that he wrote for us at rotowire.com, and I will do so when his turn would have come in rotation. But otherwise, as I said, it is the UFC 305 preview show, and I don't know about you, Joe, but anything with a title fight in it is a breath of fresh air after the disaster that we were forced to sit through last week, ending, of course, with a big boy guard armbar sub of I don't even remember the names. Marcin Tybura. Terrible fights. Everybody was kind of looking forward to Danny Barlow. That was a terrible fight. Just the less said, the better. But what do we have to say about this card, sir?
Okay, so first and foremost, do not hate the Drake. You know, as I stated in my email or my Twitter response, you know, he has got a very stressful job. Drake is the hourly day rate launderer, motel launderer in the Wisconsin area, and that is a rough job. So, you know, his company, they launder all those sheets for day rate hotels. He needs this vacation badly. Secondly, I probably had arguably maybe not the worst, like the most money I've ever lost, but like the least amount of money that I ever got back in DraftKings. And I doubled everything down. Like I had two big open-end parlays tied to Tybura. So I usually don't hedge that much when I'm live to the dog. Like I'll hedge a little bit, but I didn't hedge at all because I really like Tybura. So not only did I lose the open-end parlays that I had, but I doubled down by betting on Tybura. And then the interesting thing is you're like following it for those of you degens that like to follow the live lines. I'm following it on my phone, and there's always a delay. So like the line will go off, but the fight will still be on. So you know something happened because they took the line down. And I'm like, oh shit. Like what happened? Like I just had this like feeling of dread. Like I'm like, and then I just knew it. The way my night had been going, I knew it had to do with like something happening to Tybura. And lo and behold, who would have actually predicted an armbar from guard in a male heavyweight fight? Like that just doesn't happen. Like, so
not only that, but the first time Tybura has ever been subbed, like 33 fights.
Like I don't know why he tapped so. Like I didn't see how deep it was. Like I think
his arm would just break if he didn't tap. In all fairness, but
oh my god, it's just it was really rough. Like when you've got these open end parlays and you're sitting on like a couple of grand, and not only do you lose those, but like you double down on Tybura because you really like Tybura. It was hard. It was horrific. Like I could have done Spivak round one, Spivak by sub. You know, like
right. Well, but we are here to get that awful taste out of our mouth. Yes. So what about this card, sir?
Look, you know, the problem with some of these like destination cards is that you do get a lot of regional fighters on these cards. So there's some good fights. I mean, I'm not going to, obviously when you are comparing it to last week, it's an amazing card, but like, I think it's got its moments. I mean, you got a couple of really, really large favorites like Jenkins and Nolan. I actually, you know, one of my favorite plays is a dog, which is really kind of cool. I'm really excited to see if Luana Santos can come back and just take down O'Neal. You know, I like the female fights a lot, and you know, I think she's got a really good shot. But like, yeah, there's some good fights here. There's some binary fights. Let's just hope that, you know, the conspiracy theory about the UFC, you know, whispering into the ear of fighters not to wrestle is just bull. Because that just takes a whole nother dimension out of the game. I mean, then you might as well just like make it professional wrestling, right? Where you stage the outcomes of the fights. Like if you're telling guys how they should fight, like I don't know if I would ever watch MMA Like I don't watch professional wrestling, and I get that people like it and fine, it's entertainment, but like you can't bet on it. You can't legitimately bet on it. And I would probably have a lot more free time in my hands if like they just started staging these MMA cards. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, apparently Makiev is a pain to everybody and not just Dana White. So take what he says with a grain of salt, maybe. Would I put it past the UFC as a credentialed UFC hater? No, I wouldn't. But I maybe not gonna take his word for it right then. But as far as this card goes, I do agree with you. There are some exciting fights on this card. Main event is kind of sus just because, Adesanya doesn't deserve the title shot, really. We all know that. But I do think it's an interesting matchup. It's a shame that Drake isn't here to profess his love for Dricus Du Plessis, as always. But we'll see if Joe can
people walk out of Adesanya fights. Like they literally like walk out of. He's not like a very exciting fighter. I think all the excitement is going to have to come from Dricus. And the last point I'm going to make on the conspiracy theory about not wrestling has to do with Williams. Like I was on Williams in a big way. And the only time he wrestled was that one spot in the third round. And he looked like it was 3 rounds. He was tired, but like the other guy looked like a fish out of water. If he did that throughout the whole fight, like that was an easy win for him. Like, why does he wait to the third round, right, to drop a takedown on the guy? So anyway, I'll let it go.
Yeah, no, understood. I tweeted, sometimes I just don't know what's going on inside the heads of some of these guys. But you know what? We move on. We soldier on. No sour grapes here. We will move on to the first fight of the night. But before we do, and I swear this is the last thing, I want to say that if you want a 10-day free trial of RotoWire, you go to www.rotowire.com/free. That's www.rotowire.com/free. No credit card required. As I say, 10 days. Take a look at all our premium content. Baseball winding down, but football very much heating up. So take a look at that. All of our content there, all of our draft kit stuff, draft prep, all the other rankings, cheat sheets, all that good stuff. rotowire.com/free. Now we will move on to the card, and we are kicking off with the first fight of the night, which is I forgot his first name. Stuart Nicholl at 9,000, taking on Jesus Agalar at 7,200. Line on this fight. Nicholl can be had at -200. Agalar plus 170. And this one for me is a little kind of rough. I am picking Nicholl, but I did realize on tape that Nicholl is kind of just, he's going to wrestle he'll throw one big strike, and then he'll probably try to wrestle the whole fight. Like, that's probably what his game plan is going to be. And that's fine. It's just that in the fight against Mendonca with Agalar, Agalar was able to scramble really well, was able to get back to his feet a bunch of times. I do think Nicholl's gas tank is going to be better than Mendonca's was. So I think that he has a better shot of repeat takedowns and also staying with him and maybe racking up points that way and maybe getting the decision. I should note, too, that you could still say that Mendonca should have won that fight.
I agree. It was a split decision. There was some home cooking there.
We do have to note that, but it is worthy to be said that Aguilar is a tough customer on the ground. I do think Nicholl's striking is a little better. So if it does come to that, I think Nicholl will have a slight edge there. Interesting fight. But for the rinse and repeat takedown aspect, I am going to go with Nicholl here.
And Chris, now do not tell me that you read the salaries, because you did not.
I read the salaries. Chat, please. I can't take it tonight.
Did he read the salaries? I swear he did not.
I'm getting over being sick, and I just can't take it. It is
Aguilar is 7.2K.
7.2, and Nicholl at 9,000.
Okay.
I read them first.
Yeah.
Gaslighting me all over the place here. I can't take it. But what do you think about this fight?
Okay, so I think Aguilar is going to be pretty popular. As a like, there's not a lot of value, and I'm not even trying to convince you that Aguilar is value. I mean, he is a 10-2 fighter, and he's coming in at 7.2K. Shannon Ross, who is like another Australian, I believe he's an Australian fighter, right? Yeah. He got his knockout there. He got a suspect win against Mendonca with some home cooking. And then he like put up a grand total of 1 point in his fight against the Japanese fighter. So I do think that I've heard some talk that he's going to be a pretty popular punt dog play on DraftKings. I'm going to go, look, I don't know a lot about Nicholl. I mean, I think he is, I haven't done a lot of research on this fight. I didn't love it. I wasn't planning on playing a lot of it. He's probably crushed a lot of cans on the regional scene. Anything can happen here. I mean, really. So I would say I would not play either one of these guys in cash. You don't know about octagon jitters. I mean, there's a lot you don't know about this fight, right? First fight of the night. It's going to be what? 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. These guys are going to be fighting. Who knows, like, what's going to happen at 7 o'clock in the morning? Now, I will say the Australian fans do show up, so I'm sure that there'll be a fair number of people looking forward to the first fight. So I'm going to go with Nicholl as well, but it's a very lukewarm. I like other fighters in that range. I won't fault anyone who wants to take a shot with someone who's got 12 fights and 10 wins. Even coming off a suspect decision. So I would say GPP fight, yeah, take a flyer on Agalar. I don't see myself being too heavy on Nicholl just because there's other places I want to go here on this card.
Yeah, I actually don't mind the Agalar dog play just because I think they're both going to want to wrestle, and I think Aguilar's live on the ground. Drake actually thinks this has a chance, I should say, to end early with Nicholl getting the knockout. I don't know if I see that exactly. I think it's going to be more of a ground war. Just for the record, Drake is picking Nicholl. Also, I see more of a ground war. Could be kind of stalematy, could be fun, kind of grapply. It could be a lot of points either way if it is a scrambly, grapply kind of fight. So I am going Nicholl. And Robert, I do see you, and now the fans are gaslighting me as well. So I don't know.
I swear you didn't say it, Chris. I know a lot of times I'm teasing you, but I did not hear it.
You know what? All right. Well, okay. I'll concede to that one, and I'll make sure I say it. No.
Okay.
But so that is the first fight, and Nicholl is the pick, and we all agree on there, including Drake. So the next fight up, Song Canan, 8,700 at Rick Glenn at 7,500. I hope everybody was paying attention. Line on this fight, it is Canan Song at minus 185, Ricky Glenn plus 160, and I really think this is one to target because I think one of these guys they're China shop bulls, and I think one of them's getting knocked out. Ricky Glenn has never had good head movement. The fact that it took him so long to get knocked out in the UFC is kind of a miracle, to be honest. Now he's been knocked out in the first round in back-to-back fights. Song Canan, never shy about brawling in the pocket. Was knocked out by Max Griffin. Max Griffin himself does not get a lot of knockouts. So that right there lets you know that his chin is very wobbly. He's also very game, as we know. He can throw a big shot. So I really think that this one ends early. I'm gonna pick Canan just because I really don't like Rick Glenn kind of at all. I think his only wins come when he can sort of Homer Simpson himself to the victory, which I don't think is going to happen here because I just think Song Canan hits too hard. But I do think you have to have shares of each because I really think that this is just going to be a messy, wild brawl that ends early. But my pick is the favorite and is Canan. Joe, how do you see this fight?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Song Canan's last 4 fights. He has 3 losses and a win, 7.7K salary, 7K salary, 6.9 salary, 7.7 salary. In his win, he scored a whopping 73 points. Not exactly fighting a murderer's row, except for, Machado Gary, I guess is okay. His last big win where he scored some points was against Potter, who I believe is an Australian regional scene fighter. This is his first fight, or an Australian fighter anyway. This is his first fight in 2024. Now, I do have a bone to pick with you, Chris. Yes, you did you know, you did give the salaries, but it's not Rick Glenn, it's Ricky Glenn.
I said, all right, I'm done.
Yeah,
I said Ricky Glenn. Go.
Okay, so it's Ricky Glenn.
Yes.
He put up a whopping 3 points in his last 2 DraftKings fights.
He did.
But I don't know that Canan is, look, he beat the living crap out of Dawson. And again, this is 3 years ago in the 3rd round to get a 10-8 and a draw, right? He lost to Giagos, which was a fight he should have won it. He was 9K, right? And then he got smoked by Drew Dober, right? Had a couple fight cancellations. This is his first fight in 2024. Is this the new and improved, Ricky the Plumber Glenn? I know it says the Gladiator, but he's actually a card-carrying plumber. He's got all the perks of being a plumber. He put up 140 points against Silva in 2021 at 7.9K. He put up 139 points against Gavin Tucker and beat the living crap out of him. That fight should have been stopped. That ref needed to be fired. I'm gonna take a flyer here on Ricky Glenn. I don't love Song Canan. I would not want any open parlays tied to Song Canan. So I don't love Ricky Glenn, but looking for lower priced fighters, if he shows up and if he is the best Ricky Glenn, I think the best Ricky Glenn beats the best Song Canan. So I'm going to look at this as purely a GPP fight. Okay, if you're playing a lot of lineups, have both sides. But I'm going to go out on a limb, even though this guy, obviously the variance is so high here when you're taking a guy who lost his last 2 fights and scored a whopping total of 3 DraftKings points. So give me Ricky Glenn as the dog here. GPP only. Oh, and by the way, this is not a great cash card.
No, not at all.
This is not. There are good cash cards and good GPP cards. This is a pure GPP card. I am not playing any cash on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't mind the dog play at all. Like I said, I think somebody's going to sleep here. But I will say, for that reason, I kind of like the contrarian pay up because you look at Song Canan and he obviously has not done well in this. But I should say, I mean, the Calvin Potter's fight notwithstanding, 3 of his last 4 fights he scored a knockdown in, including that Ian Machado Gary fight.
But isn't there a fair amount of support? I've been hearing a lot of people picking Canan, looking for those sub 9K fighters. So, I mean, I'm looking at this as not only a dog, but perhaps a contrarian play. It seems like Canan might be one of the higher owned sub 9K guys. I don't know. Are you hearing the same thing?
I actually haven't heard anything. That was just my assumption. But if you are hearing that, then that does speak to the fact that Ricky Glenn would be the better play from that perspective. Yep. I would still take Canan just because I like that he's faster too. So yep. When you put all that together, I like Canan. As far as Drake, he's taking Canan as well. He doesn't really seem to think that this could end early as I do. He thinks that maybe this is going to be kind of a low volume striking match, or at least it could be, but he is still picking Canan. I tend to think the finish is coming, and I am picking Canan, so we will see what happens there. But right now, we're going to move on to the next fight. It is Tom Nolan at 9,800 taking on Alex Reyes at 6,400. Alex the Executioner Reyes, that is, at 6,400. Line on this fight is as gigantic as you may have heard about. I'm going to pick the biggest one because I think that's funnier. So I see minus 1770 for Tom Nolan and Alex Reyes plus 712. Those ranges are minus 1,200 or 1,300 for Nolan on the lower side. And it all kind of just boils down to Alex Reyes has fought twice in the UFC. Once in 2013, got knocked out by Mike Perry. Once in 2017, got knocked out again. And he's a guy by Charlie Campbell there. And he's just a guy who's just all offense all the time. Doesn't look bad offensively. If you were going to watch him in his first 30 seconds, you might say, okay, this guy is agile. He moves around a lot. He kind of, he's in and out. But, I mean, it's just big looping shots. He gets hit by every single strike that gets thrown his way. He doesn't know when to stop punching. There was a time in the first time he got hurt in that Charlie Campbell fight, he had caught, or I'm sorry, Campbell caught his leg and he was just trying to punch, and he got really hurt bad trying to do that. And it's not like Tom Nolan is some defensive maven. He's not. We've seen him get hurt, just getting drawn into wars, just having that brash kind of confidence that he can, best anybody in that department, and simply didn't happen in that Nicholas Motor fight. He did bounce back, and this one is, well, the pick is not difficult, of course. The pick is Tom Nolan, but having Tom Nolan be this big a favorite when he is kind of somebody who will go in for those wars. I mean, Alex Reyes, he's just going to get hit by every strike that gets thrown at him, and Tom Nolan is the cleaner striker, and he's going to be the crisper striker and probably hit harder. Alex Reyes is probably going to be a little bit faster, but is it going to matter? And Alex Reyes has tried to wrestle in the past, and I emphasize try because he's never landed a takedown. But he has tried to wrestle in the past. And as you can see, I'm really fishing for anything for the dog here. But, of course, the pick is Tom Nolan. I don't really know what to say about this one. If you're playing like 50 lineups, have some shares of Reyes because this is probably going to be a barn burner. But the most likely scenario, of course, is Reyes being knocked out. So my pick has to be Tom Nolan. And I doubt you have much different take. But go ahead, Joe. Show it.
I have some narrative to add. I mean, this does scare me, this fight. You've got a 6'3" lightweight, right, who fights with his chin up. He's essentially Patterson, the English fighter, without a ground game, right? Yeah. He is 7-1, and he lost to, get this, Nicholas Mota as a minus 350 favorite, right? So now we have him at 9.8K minus 1,200. Now, okay, let's look at Reyes. Like, could the UFC have given this guy a softer, 37 years old? Going back to 2015, he's had eight canceled fights and 4 actual fights since 2015. I had to double check it. I thought I was maybe looking at like Alex Perez or something. He's had 8 canceled fights and has 2-2 in his last 4 fights, right? I can't see. Again, since I'm not playing cash, do I want to lay 9.8K in the hopes that he gets a finish in the first minute and scores 125? Because otherwise, like, what are you going to get? Like, 100 points gets you 10x, right? Like, you really need to get 12 or 13x probably. And I think there are better places on this card to get 12 to 13x. So of course I'm going to pick Nolan. This is a total setup fight. There's just so much narrative surrounding this. Like, a 6'3" guy with his chin up and no ground game. Like, could he get caught by something? Absolutely, which is why in GPPs, I'll have a few shares of Reyes. Like, I'll build a lineup or 2 around Leia. I don't think anybody's going to be playing Reyes. Yeah. I just do not like the optics here, other than the fact that I know the UFC is just setting this guy up to get a win in Australia.
I mean, I would agree, except that Reyes has just shown absolutely nothing.
And he's 37 years old. I mean, this is it. This is his last fight in the UFC.
I mean, I think he gets dusted quickly. Like, I think that first round, first minute win bonus is more likely here than probably it's been in any fight maybe we've seen in the past year. So I really think
then you got to play it. If you think he's got a legitimate shot at getting, that first minute win. I mean, just remember though, this guy lost by KO to Nicholas Mota, right? In the first round as a 9.2K, with a 9.2 salary and a minus 350. Now, Nicholas Mota is better than Reyes. I'll give you that. But man, oh man, that's not a good look. So, and again, he hasn't, he fought 3 months ago. He beat Martinez, right? He won. Yeah. He got a first round KO. Scored 105 DraftKings points at 9.5K. I don't even know if he was optimal. Someone would need to tell me. But yeah, 9.8K. This is like Amanda Nunes territory. So I don't know, dude.
The other thing I think you have to consider is that Nolan is, prospecty enough that you can think when he steps in the cage every time he's going to be a little better. I don't know how much weight you want to put into that, but it is something to be considered. all in all, we spent way too much time on a minus 1700 whatever fight. The
Yep.
pick is Tom Nolan. You guys have your caveats, but he is the play, of course. And I should say Drake, of course, going with Nolan, liking his speed and power here. But we will, mercifully, some would say, move on to the next fight. And that was my fault, too. I kind of dragged that out. But the next fight is, we got two big ones in a row, huh? It is Jack Jenkins at 9,600 taking on Herbert Burns at 6,600. Line on this fight, and I hit the wrong tab, but the line on this fight is Jenkins at minus 700, Herbert Burns plus 500. And this is kind of like, kind of in the last one, in a similar vein, but the fact that styles make fights here, and Herbert Burns is just a whirlwind who is just going to come out and either finish you quickly or get finished quickly most of the time. We know the big spinning back elbow KO in his debut there hasn't gone well for him lately. Jack Jenkins, not a guy who's ever done anything close to justifying this salary. But as I just said, Herbert Burns a whirlwind, and Jack Jenkins has that wrestling too. He's a pretty solid boxer. So like a couple takedowns and a first round finish, that would certainly get you there. But it is kind of risky. I'm not going to be having a lot of Jack Jenkins, especially if you want Nolan. You obviously can't play Jenkins. But to me, Jenkins just hasn't justified the salary. He's not really a finisher. And so, I'm going to pass it. Can the Herbert Burns effect work its magic and Jenkins put up like 107 here? That could happen. I'm going to pass it. I think Herbert Burns is going to be, at least he's the more athletic guy here. So that could count for something too. And I just don't think he's going to cover 9,600. So the pick is Jenkins, but probably one to avoid unless you want to play the dog, who is not, all that terrible. I just don't see it here. So the pick is Jenkins. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, yet another 9.6K Australian fighter. That scares me to death. He hasn't fought in a year, and when he last did fight, he got nuked by Mariscal, by Chepi Mariscal. Now, of course, they're giving him a supposed layup as well. You look at Hubert Burns, right? So he lost his last two fights, right? He lost to Julio Arce as a plus 310 underdog. And then here's really interesting narrative. Bill Algeo, he was a plus 175 underdog against Bill Algeo. I don't think I've ever seen this as a reason for a loss. He lost by exhaustion from damage. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that? I don't think I've ever seen that as like.
I don't think I have, but if anybody was going to do that to him, Algeo seems like the guy who might.
Yeah. So honestly, this guy hasn't fought. This guy hasn't had a win since like Crocs were cool. I mean, I think his last win was the ghost of Evan Dunham during COVID. Yeah, that was his last win, and he actually has a win against Landair, which not a bad win. I mean, Landair's a bulldog, but again, that was years ago. That was 4 years ago. Hubert Burns, you think he might be younger, but he's actually 36 years old. This is a layup fight for Jenkins, but honestly, I think that Burns is better than Reyes. So if you're gonna get an upset, it's probably gonna be here versus the Reyes Nolan fight. I wish they just actually gave these guys somebody to fight.
Yeah,
and not just tried to stick them with these last. I mean, they're obviously looking to clear space for Contender Series contracts. But yeah, I'll take Jenkins again, but since I'm not playing cash, there are places that I like more in GPPs. And I would take a flyer on Burns if I was going to spread.
I mean, the only thing I'll say for sure is that if these fights end when they're supposed to, us in the audience are going to be in for a nightmare because it's right at the beginning of the card. It's going to be like an hour of filler if it ends they both end in the first round.
Oh my God, that'll be awful.
They're supposed to. So for that reason alone, I hope that one of these gets extended. But I do agree with you that Herbert Burns is definitely the safer sub 7K dog play, if that makes sense. I just don't see Jack Jenkins as a finisher, and I think Burns is going to have more opportunity to get things done. I really see nothing in Reyes. I think this reminds me of like when the older guys, when guys like Mike Pyle were coming out for their last hurrahs, and you just knew. I mean, obviously, what very different fighters. Mike Pyle, legend in the sport, but I'm just saying, you just knew that a guy was going to come out. Okay, there's going to be about a minute fight, and then it's going to be over, and that's it. That's kind of how I see that one. This one's a little bit more interesting than me. My pick is still Jenkins, but I definitely do see a little bit more more juice in Herbert Burns here. As far as Drake goes, he likes. I'm going in the wrong direction. He likes Jenkins as well, of course. He likes Jenkins as a cash lock, as you would, but as you said, Joe, not really a great cash card, but this fight would be. So Drake's going with Jenkins. I'm going with Jenkins. We're all going with Jenkins, but look out for Herbert Burns. He might surprise you. But we will move on to the next fight here, and it is. I gotta stop doing that. Okay, it is Luana Santos at 8,600 taking on Casey O'Neill at 7,600. Yes, line on this fight. Santos at minus 145, Casey O'Neill plus 125, and this is going to be my first official dog play of the card. I think Casey O'Neill. I kind of like these post-hype prospects whenever I can get them, especially somebody like Casey O'Neill, who's a good grappler, is decently aggressive. And Luana Santos, I mean, let's be real. Like, she's doing all right, right? She's got 3 wins in the UFC. She's only really fought one good opponent. She fought Stephanie Egger, who's really, aside from being a big, strong grappler for the division, doesn't really have that much going for her. And she really put it on Santos in the third round. Santos was tired. She was gasping for breath. And Egger took her down, had her in a bad position. The clock ran out, and Santos got her W. If she gets tired again, I think Casey O'Neill could really put a hurting on her here. And I think it's because, Santos is just all action all the time. She throws big, wild shots. Then she goes for takedowns. I want to know what she's going to do against another grappler. I don't know how it's going to be easy to take down Casey O'Neill. I think the dog is very live here. I don't think Santos is all she's cracked up to be. I see you shaking your head, so I may as well get to Drake first, who also is picking Santos, but is kind of a little bit more sympathetic to O'Neill. Says that if it remains on the feet, it stays closer, which I do agree with. I think O'Neill is a decent boxer on the feet, but I'm interested in the ground game too here. So Drake is picking Santos. I am picking O'Neill, and you are picking Joe?
I love Santos in this spot.
All right.
24 years old. You're talking about the Egger fight. She had, first of all, it was at 135, and she missed weight by 4 pounds.
All right,
she had a very bad weight cut, and she had some female issues going into that fight, right? So it doesn't surprise me that she gassed out. She looked phenomenal in her last fight. She's 24 years old. She's going to sub O'Neill. I mean, I think these are two fighters and going in different directions. Neither one of these fighters are very hard to look at, but they really did give O'Neill a pretty soft schedule. I mean, come on, Antonina Shevchenko, like, she's got nothing on the ground. I mean, she turned Chukagian into Daniel Cormier. Modafferi, she won by split decision in Roxanne Modafferi's last fight, right? Then she steps up in competition and gets dominated by Jennifer Meyer and gets armbarred by Ariana Lipsky, right? That was her last fight, right? When was that fight? Okay, so not quite a year. Okay, so 8 months. She would have been way better off fighting Teresa Blader, who was her proposed opponent. So Santos is stepping up on short notice. It's at 125. I have not heard of any fighters missing weight, but I don't know. I was kind of out of pocket all day, so I'm assuming that Santos looked okay on the scale. I love Santos here. I really do. I like her as a bat. I like her in parlays. I like her on DraftKings. Like, this is one of my, and I love the price because I think she could sub O'Neal. I think she could get a sub. And unfortunately, I think, the hometown girl here is going down. She stepped up in competition. She lost to Maya. She lost to Lipsky. And now she's going to lose to Santos, who I think has got a future at 24 years old in the UFC. I really like the way she looked in her last fight.
The only thing I would say about that is, Casey O'Neal stepped up and lost. Luana Santos hasn't had a step up in competition yet. Who's her step up in competition? Maria Gapova? I mean, I hope we don't think that.
No, what I'm just saying is that she looked good in her last fight. She's improving. She's 24 years old. Yes, she's taking this on short notice, but having made weight at 125, that shows you that it was just a blip. She was having issues when she missed weight at bantamweight. She was not at full strength. I think there was even an article out there to that effect. I really like her in this spot. I think that she's going to submit O'Neal. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be looking at props, Santos by submission.
All right. Well, see, I like when your takes are really strong like that, because then I know if I do like a dog opposite you, I need to go really strong the other way to get the max leverage if I am right about it. But so that is officially a 2-1 pick with the two other boys going Santos there. I like Casey O'Neal. I think she has the ability to surprise here. Plus, I don't really love when we're all in on these darlings that haven't really done anything yet. But we will see. And for now, we will move on. It is. Told myself I was going to stop doing that, but I did not. But the next fight is Josh Kulaba at 8,500 taking on Ricardo Ramos at 7,700. Line on this fight. Kulaba can be had for -135. Ramos at +115. And back-to-back dogs for me. There have been times in my DK playing career where I've sworn off Ricardo Ramos. There are just too many times where he looks like he's asleep. He comes out flat and he gets like weirdly subbed or weirdly knocked out when you don't think it should happen. And we've all suffered through that. But this fight, I think, is the most forgiving matchup he's going to get as an underdog. Josh Kulaba is just not a finisher. He's a decent boxer. He's not going to have anything for Ramos on the ground. He doesn't hit as hard as Ramos, I don't think. So I think Ramos is going to have some real advantages here. If he can't win this one, then I think it's time to wrap it up. I think that's it for the Ricardo Ramos show. For me, if he loses here, especially if he loses badly, if he puts up a valiant fight and he loses, that I guess that'll happen. But if he loses badly here, I will just never pick him again. I don't care if he's fighting, the division's version of CM Punk. I won't pick him. That'll be it for me. But for now, I think that we have to go Ramos here. Give him one more try. I'm on the dog here. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, so you have both of these fighters are coming off 2 losses. And I was like momentarily transfixed by the Tapology page of Kulaba. He fights at the acclaimed Agalar MMA Academy in Sydney. And I was just looking at the staff for that academy on Tapology. And wow, Lauren Lester, the general manager. And that now I understand how they get males to train there. But in any case, it's interesting because I'm with you on Ramos. What's really, he does actually train at a good camp. He trains at Alpha Male, yet he is coming off back-to-back submissions, which really doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I agree that this is a loser-go-home fight, definitely. Again, UFC is looking to make spots for the Dana White Contender Series signees. The only thing that has me a little hesitant on Ramos, and I'm going to stick with Ramos, is that my good friend Brett Apley on his Mayo Media Network Quick Picks gave out Kulaba as his GPP play, which, he said it was contrarian. He said it didn't make sense, but he thought that something could happen in this fight and there would be a finish, and he picked Kulaba. So I'm a little tentative for that reason. Brad, I respect you, but my original lean here was Ramos, and I'm going to go with Ramos. But again, I can't say it enough. This is not a cash card. This is not a cash fight. This is a GPP fight. Maybe you want to have a few shares of each. Nothing screams like big score here, but who knows, right? So I'm going to take Ramos. He's a slight dog. You're going to need some dogs, especially if you're going to play the guys at the top. And I think this is probably a coin flip fight. So yeah, let's go with Ramos.
Yeah, and to be clear, I would never call anybody crazy for picking Kulaba here, just because of how unreliable how much has been in the past. And at least Kulaba, we know, will come and fight every time. So from that perspective, I get it. And this would be the contrarian pay up, I think. Like, this is the one where I think people would be like, I'm not touching this. So I get it. If that hits, that's going to be pretty big. I wouldn't, tut anybody for doing that. Not my scene personally, but Vile Candios for anyone doing that. And as far as Drake, he is picking Ramos as well. Clear advantage on the mat and no takedown defensive. Kulaba. Oh, thank you, Drake's article, because that is something I forgot to say. Kulaba taken down 7 times in his last 2 fights. That is major here. So with all that said, pick is Ramos. Pay up contrarian Kulaba. Absolutely. And we will again move on to the next fight here. It is I guess I'll go with the 8,200 first, and that is Junior Tafa at 8,200 taking on Walter Walker at 8,000. Line on this fight is similarly close. It is minus 130 for Junior Tafa, plus 110 for Walter Walker. And look, I get that it's not a good look to lose to Lucas Bresky in your UFC debut, but he had a really good first round, a lot of grappling, a lot of control, a lot of beat him up, and then got tired. Lucas Bresky, for all his faults, and there are a lot of them, is very scrambly, very active. Junior Tafa is not. Junior Tafa got taken down and controlled by Muhammad Usman. I can't imagine him getting away from Walter Walker. When the takedown comes, I don't think that Walker's going to need to use a lot of energy here. I think it's just going to be a couple of takedowns, ride out the round or get a sub. A couple takedowns, ride out the round or get a sub. And at salaries like this, at 8,000, that's going to be enough, man. Like, he could get 86, 88 in his sleep here. So I really think he's a great play. Junior Tafa is basically live to a knockout. This is still a guy who's very, very young in his UFC career. I feel like we've heard his name for a while, and so maybe because he's Justin Tafa's brother, and so maybe that leads to it more. But only 7 UFC fights to his name, only 1 win in the UFC, and that is the man, the myth, the legend, Parker Porter. But I don't know how much stock we're putting in that. Look, he's got a big right hand. He can obviously box. We know that Walker's tough because he survived when he was dead tired to hear the bell in the fight with Bresky. So I'm sure I won't be the only one, as I see you kind of shaking your head. But I love Walker here. Nobody's going to be able to get higher percentages of leverage than Walker because mine is going to be 100%. I love Walter Walker. And for that, I'm going to throw it over to you, Joe. What do you got?
One of my favorite plays on the card is Walker, for sure. As long as he doesn't get the whisper from Mick Maynard to not wrestle, which we're hoping he doesn't get.
Sure.
Tafa he's got nothing. I mean, he's a kickboxer that can kick. I mean, he got his legs chewed up by DeLima. I mean, he's just not good. So, like, I mean, how in the world we're getting plus 110 on Walker? I don't even know. Like, this line should be flipped. Makes absolutely no sense to me. I like him on DraftKings. I am going in significantly large at plus 110 to win. I mean, he was actually even better than that a little earlier, plus 114. So I honestly don't understand what people are looking at unless they just think he's not going to wrestle. And you can't be a conspiracy theorist in how you wager. No. So I am going to assume he will wrestle and he will dominate Tafa. Give me Walker here. I like him a lot.
If it turns out, I'll say this right now. If it turns out that these wrestle heavy guys against guys who get taken out, if it turns out they don't wrestle, I'm not playing. I'm not playing this anymore. I retire. I'm gonna be done. If it turns out they don't
I
wrestle
agree.
because that means that there is something going on and it makes this unplayable. But I don't think that's gonna happen. Let me be clear about that. But I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah, Junior, this is almost suspiciously close. Like, why would Junior Tafa be this close to anybody who could grapple? I don't know. But the pick is Walker, and predictably, it's the pick for Drake as well, and also one of Drake's favorite plays on the card. So
Wow.
big.
And I didn't know that. We did not talk about Drake's plays before. I did not realize that. It makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, no. It's just we all converge, we all see it. Big love for Walker here. Get him in those lineups, and if it crashes out, we will all feel your pain. So take some consolation in that if you would. And all right, so now we are going to move on to the main card. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break for our audio only podcast listeners, and we will be right back. And we're back. Okay, thank you all so much for hanging out. We are going to get into the main pay-per-view card right now. It is Carlos Prattes at 9,200 taking on the Leech, Li Jinglong at 7,000. Line on this fight, it is Prattes at minus 400, Li Jinglong at plus 300. And it's kind of, look, to be clear, Prattes has put up the points, give or take, in his first two fights, 95-106. I have issues with him because I think he fights slowly, and he's going to be a big favorite in all these fights, so it's going to be a little hard. But this is probably a good matchup for him. Li Jinglong always likes a firefight, to his detriment sometimes, and I think it's going to be a detriment here. He can grapple. In fact, his nickname, the Leech, comes from his grappling, although we never really see it. Sometimes we do. It's very rare. I think Carlos Prates is way more explosive. He's also, his frame is just bigger, so that's going to be a speed bump for Li Jinglong as well. I think the Leech just gets knocked out here. I think Prates is just way too fast, way too explosive, way too powerful. If the Leech can just walk him down over and over again, he might get the relative amateur tired, but I really don't see it happening. I think there's going to be a meeting in the middle very early. I think Li Jinglong is going to get hurt, and I basically think that's going to be the end of the fight. So I love Prates here. But Joe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I mean, he fighting nerd, another fighting nerd here in Prates. Honestly, I would be a little bit more tempted to play the Leech if he wasn't coming off a 2-year layoff, which is quite a significant layoff. Interesting fact about Prates, and this is one, shout out to Paul Shaughnessy, Paul Shag, one of the OGs. Apparently, Prates likes his cigarettes. He is one of the fighters that is the active smoker. He smokes like 6 to 7 cigarettes a day, and cigarettes are expensive in Australia. Somebody said 40 something dollars Australian a pack, which even translated to like real money is a lot of money. So, I hate betting smokers in fights that might go more than a round. And Leech is tough, but I do, you're right. You have to play Prates here. Fighting nerds have been so freaking hot, the camp, and you got the equity for an early finish. And let me just confirm his salary real quick. 9.2K. Yeah, I probably like him more than Jenkins or Nolan's. Getting that quick finish. But his point average is the highest. Well, actually, he's tied with Santos. He won 100.5 points. Yeah. But, look, this guy has lost 6 fights. He's 19-6. He's not a kid. He's been around the block. So, right. Buyer beware. But I will go with Prates here.
Yeah, Fighting Nerds, I will say, last time we were on this show, actually, Molly McCann was a big back by everybody except for one person here. I don't remember which one. But you guys all liked Molly, and Fighting Nerds came through there, so those guys are doing something right, and hard not to back Prattes with everything going on, especially throwing that in with the icing on the cake there. As for Drake, he predictably is going Prattes here. He likes Prattes as a high DFS scorer here. He thinks the fight ends early, and I think that's a good read. I think Prattes, as much as I do worry that he fights a little slowly, I think that this is a good matchup to score some points here. But we will move on with the main card now. It is Jair Rosenstrike at 8,900 taking on Tuivasa at 7,300. Line on this fight. Rosenstrike minus 250. Tuivasa coming back plus 200. Line probably doesn't need to be quite that wide just because it's a heavyweight fight and we got two big boys here. And Tafa is very aggressive. You don't always know what kind of Jair Rosenstrike you're going to get. Sometimes you get the guy who just fights so slowly that he just doesn't put together any points. But I should say his last fight when he beat Gaziev there, and I know it's a 5-round fight, and I know that he took over late. 127 significant strikes. That blows away anything he's done since 2019. He had 89. Before that after that, his next highest is 42. So 127, and I know it's a 5-round fight, and I know it went 4 rounds, but it didn't even go all 5. That should be noted. Stopped after the 4th there. But there's going to be another fight where Tafa is going to force the action, and as the more technical kickboxer, whatever that means to you when we're talking about heavyweights, as the more technical kickboxer, and Tuivasa is not going to wrestle. We know that. He's the fighting bloke. Go try another bloke, as he likes to say. I just think you have to take. Rosenstrike here, just because he's the cleaner striker, and he's probably going to get Tafa tired if it does last and get like a late first round knockout, which would be plenty of points in a spot like this for sub 9,000. So the play is Rosenstrike. If people are off of him because they do think he fights too slow, the last fight notwithstanding, then I'll happily take him for 89 here, just because of the pressure and action that Tuivasa is going to bring and force him to fight. So that is the reason I like Rosenstrike here. Joe, what do you think?
So in his prior 7 fights, Rosenstrike had a total of 130 significant strikes.
Yeah.
So he nearly scored more than the sum of the significant strikes he threw in his prior 7 fights.
Yeah.
So that was a marquee performance at 7.9K. Putting up 93 points. I'll take it. Look, here's the way that I see this. So this is I don't think anybody is gonna wrestle here. We know Tuivasa's not. I don't even think Rosenstrike has a takedown. Let me see. No takedowns for Rosenstrike. So when you got 2 guys, heavyweights, that are boxing, I tend to go with the more technical striker, which is Rosenstrike, right? He's the more disciplined. He's at least has a pedigree in fighting, where Tuivasa is an ex-rugby player, right? So 8.9K, I don't hate it, but there is some risk here. Like if Tuivasa catches him with something, Rosenstrike could put up 1 point, 2 points, 13 points. Like look at the points he's put up in his losses. But he was beat by far better fighters than Tuivasa. I mean, Blades, Volkov, Almeida. Generally speaking, like I would say that Tuivasa is probably on the same level as Dawkins. And what did he do to Dawkins? He knocked him out and put up 130 points. So you gotta put him up there. Or Sakai, 106 points, right, with the KO. So yeah, I definitely like Rosenstrike here. Give me Rosenstrike. Who does?
Yeah, I should know. Besides Volkov, who's kind of an outlier there, although I would say kind of an elite gatekeeper. But aside from him, all of Rosenstrike's losses are wrestlers and the top of the division.
Yep.
And Tuivasa is certainly neither of those. So I'm going with Rosenstrike as well. Drake also going with Rosenstrike, and Drake expects Rosenstrike to use his reach advantage to I'll point to Tuivasa and eventually knock him out. So it seems like we are all on the same page there. Okay, moving on. We got Matthias Gamrot at 9,300 taking on Dan the Hangman Hooker at 6,900. And I should say, a little too much sub 7,000 on this card for my liking. That's three of them. I think two should kind of be your max. I mean, three's a lot, especially if it's only 12 fights. But anyway, to Dan the Hangman Hooker at 6,900. Line on this fight, it is oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Minus 370 for Gamrot, plus 295 for Dan Hooker. And we do need to note at the outset, 80% takedown defense rate for Hooker. He's been here a long time. He's never really faced a committed grappler before. He's faced people who can kind of wrestle and don't. He knocked out Gilbert Burns early, so we don't know what would have developed in that fight. And it was also in a different weight class. But I really like Gamrot here. Dan Hooker has always been a guy who's been backing himself up, I should say, to the fence. He does it all the time, constantly. It's what got him knocked out, I should say, against Michael Chandler. I don't expect him to get knocked out here, but I do expect a lot of takedowns here. I do expect a lot of sub opportunities and potentially a sub. I just think Gamrot is going to swallow Dan Hooker up here. I don't think this fight's going to be particularly close. Dan Hooker can still be a slick striker, as we saw in his fight with Jalen Turner. He's got a lot of heart, as we also saw in that fight. Fights with Barboza, even though he lost that one, etc. So there's not nothing to Hooker here, but I just think that the skill set of Gamrot is going to be too much here, especially paired with the eccentricities, I guess you could say, in the fighting styles of Dan Hooker. So my pick is Gamrot in a big way. Joe, how do you see it?
So here's the thing, right? Like, I don't hate taking a shot on Hooker.
Yeah.
Especially after the Turner fight. And here's why. If you look at Gamrot's fights, he gets tagged in each one of his fights. Now, he comes back and he handles it well, but he does get hit. He does get tagged.
Yeah.
Now, what is likely going to happen is, Gamrot's going to wrestle at him, right? But if Hooker can get his shot in, there's a chance at 6.9K. I don't mind taking a flyer on Hooker and GPPs. Like, again, I said it once, I'll say it again. This is a GPP card. If you're going to spread. Even the biggest cash play on the card, one could argue, would be a guy like Gamrot, because he's going to get a lot of takedowns. He's going to get control time. But even with that said, I would still look at Hooker as having GPP potential, because, one of these days someone's going to hit Gamrot and he's not going to get up. Who says it can't be Hooker? Yeah. I, of course, am going to pick Gamrot. I believe I picked Gamrot, in our little survey here, but I'll take Gamrot, but I don't hate taking a flyer on Hooker at 6.9K.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's a decent shout. I do think that there are going to be some of those scares that you talked about. I just think Gamrot's going to fight through them. So there you go. But maybe all you need is one, and for that price, it would certainly be worth it. As far as what Drake thinks, he's going with Gamrot here. He said, unless Hooker gets an early knockout, it's the likely outcome. One of the premier wrestlers, and he should chain takedowns while racking up control, and I agree with all of that. So, flyer, I don't hate. If you're going to take one of the 6,900 guys, you could do worse than Hooker, certainly, but or sub-7 guys, I should say. But my pick is Gamrot. And we are going to move on to the co-main event here. I paused here because I think that I gave the favorite in this fight when I was giving my picks to Jake, but I think that I'm going to reconsider. It is Steve Erceg at 8,800 taking on Kai Kara-France at 7,400. Line on this fight, Erseg minus 170, Kai Kara-France at plus 145. And my big hang up, when I was writing this fight, I noted it. Writing up this fight, I noted it. Been thinking about it all week, and I just looked at it to confirm again here. It's funny to say this at flyweight, but Steve Erceg hasn't fought anybody fast yet. He fought David Dvorak, he fought Costa, he fought Matt Schnell, he fought Pantoja. None of those guys, in fact, those might be the most plodding fighters in the flyweight division. Steve Erceg, also slow. Kai Kara France, very fast. That speed is very interesting to me. Erseg is a little bit flat-footed, kind of a flat-footed boxer, a wrestler too, but I should say a grappler because he doesn't really use his wrestling all that much. But he is a very slick grappler. So if it goes to the ground, it will of course be interesting. Although we'll see how the scrambles go there too. That will be interesting as well. But I'm just going to take the speed of Kai Kara France here, and kind of in the same vein, not in the same way, of course, but I was talking earlier about, when these guys get up very high very early, sometimes it's good to look for opportunities with dogs against them to see them fall. Now, Erseg, of course, has already had a lot of success, did a lot better against Pantoja than I thought he would, of course. I picked Pantoja in that fight. Thought Pantoja was going to roll. Didn't work out that way. But I really like the speed of Kai Kara France here to give Erseg some troubles. And I'm going to take a shot. So I'm going to officially change my pick. If I can get it to Jake before the fight's good. If not, so be it for the official one there. But my pick is going to be Kai Kara France. And Joe, how you seeing this one?
Yeah. I wish this was a 5-round fight, in all honesty, because if this was a 5-round fight, this would be your cash stack.
Right.
If this was a 5-round fight, I really like what I saw. I think Erseg has got so much better stand up than Kai Kara France does. Kai Kara France, obviously coming off of 2 losses, obviously good fighters, Moreno and Albazi. Has not fought in 14 months. I'm not sure why, if that was intentional or not. I don't think he's going to have success wrestling against Erseg. So if I see Erseg as being having the better stand-up, and if I see Francis not having any success in grappling, then why would I take Kai Kara France? I like Erseg. I'm going to stick with Erseg. He impressed the hell out of me in that fight against Pantoja. He came a couple of fight IQ points away from actually being the title holder at 125. So I'll take Erseg.
Yeah. You know what? That exchange is funny because people always dog him for that. Why would you go for a takedown? But Pantoja had to hit a really amazing scramble to get on top in that situation. So I don't even really fault him for that so much. But I do agree with you that his stand-up is better. Speed I always say speed kills. Speed kills for me. And to me, that's enough. And combined with the inexperience to just sort of take a shot here. I mean,
no, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I would certainly say take a few shots with Kai Kara France in GPPs, because even in a loss, unless Erseg finishes him, which I don't expect, he's not gonna put up 2 points, right? He's gonna put up some points. So I see worse plays at his price point. I honestly do.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm gonna have to look this up. Thomas Kane, he took off because of concussions. That's an interesting thing there. So supposedly 100%. I'll have to read into that. So maybe if it's severe, maybe that changes my perspective a little. Thank you for that, Thomas.
Thank you, TK.
Good information. Yeah. But yeah. So I'm sorry. I did not Drake's pick. Drake's pick is Steve Erceg as well. Kai Kara France lost over a year ago, losing to decision. Take that defensive elite. We'll need every bit of it. Expect Erseg to get this fight to the mat early, potentially put Kara France away before the final bell. So Drake taking Erseg there as well. The vibe I get, though, from reading over his post there, too, is, Kai Kara France getting credit there, too. So I think the vibe is, a live dog. The concussions for me does throw a wrench in it. I'll have to look into it. But for now, I'm still sticking with Kai Kara France. But that will take us to the main event of the evening. It is Dricus Du Plessis. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Adesanya, he's the favorite, is he? He's not, though. I think he might be the more expensive DK play, but I don't think he is the favorite. In fact, it is, I see it in some spots -110, -110, but we'll go with I mean, the champion's got to be the favorite, so that's why I'm going to read it. It is Israel Adesanya, and I'm going to read the line first, minus 122. Dricus Du Plessis, minus 108. DraftKings salary, actually having Adesanya more expensive, 8,300, 7,900 for Dricus. And first thing to note, can you recall ever seeing that where the champion is less money than the dog here?
I think it's happened before.
I mean,
I'd have to think about it, but I'm sure it's happened before.
I mean, especially with the time off, and he looked so bad in his last fight. I mean, look, and I'm saying this as somebody, and I'll get to it, who's picking Israel Adesanya. It just seems strange to me that he wouldn't be at least a slight dog. The reason I'm still picking Adesanya is because I still believe in him as a mover and a defensive fighter and a counterpuncher. I kind of see this as, if you remember the first Robert Whittaker fight, where Whittaker just came out and tried to blitz him. And, Adesanya did his Matrix thing and got a really slick knockout. I kind of think that he can do the same thing here. Now, that kind of changes if Dricus Du Plessis, as a big middleweight, tries to wrestle. So far, the wrestlers haven't had a lot of success with Adesanya. But Du Plessis is a big one. So his wrestling could change the game. And as we saw, even when Pereira took him down, he didn't have much off his back. So if Du Plessis takes him down, I can imagine it would not go well. Still, I got to pick Adesanya here to just sort of dance through the raindrops, as they say, get his counter shots off, use his jab, use his leg kicks, and just kind of stay in space. If he gets closed down, like he allowed Sean Strickland to do to him, it's going to be really ugly for him again. But for now, I'm going to take that flyer, and I'm also going to go ahead and read Drake's love letter to Dricus here. I'll do that first. We know that Drake is a big Du Plessis fan. He says, Du Plessis has shown he's okay getting in the pocket with guys with longer reach. That is true. I agree. He says, considerable edge on the mat. That is, of course, true. Israel struggled with grapplers. Du Plessis is one of the best in the division. I mean, maybe, but middleweight. So, we're past the days of Jaka right now. So maybe we're grading on a curve. But Drake is, of course, picking Du Plessis. I can, of course, see it. But something tells me I still have to go with Israel Adesanya. Joe, how do you see the main event?
Yeah, so, this is so tough for me because I originally, earlier in the week, I picked Izzy, right, with our staff picks. And I am so close to switching my pick to Dricus. Yeah. But here's the issue, right? There are a handful of people in this industry that, provide content that you just, respect the F out of, right? And one of the guys that I just respect so much, and it's not because he's like a fellow Jersey guy, and, Mr. Madlap, who's since relocated to Orange County, California, he is really confident that Izzy is going to be a new. And whenever I see something like that from someone like Madlab, Mike, that I respect the F out of, I'm like, oh shit. I'm every bone in my body is saying, take the Plessis, get the salary savings, even if I'm not gonna bet him, take the salary savings. And is he or is he not going to wrestle, right? If he wrestles, like you said, I think he could have some success. Right? Izzy is definitely going to be the better counter puncher. But how is Du Plessis going to engage? I mean, Izzy just looks so lost against Strickland at 9.7K in Sydney, which again, I was there for that. Thank you, DraftKings. So I just is Izzy vested? Does he want this title? There's so many questions outstanding, I don't know what to do here. Mike, you're my boy. I really like you a lot. I mean, this could be a big pork chop for me. I am going to officially change my pick to Dricus Du Plessis. I'm sorry, Mike. You're probably right. Don't tail me on this, but I am going to officially change my pick to Dricus. I just have a feeling. I actually thought Strickland beat Dricus. I thought he won that fight. I thought it was a bad decision. I would not mind at all seeing. I'd rather see Strickland fight Dricus again than see Strickland fight Izzy. So let me change my pick to Dricus, and that was not easy. By the way, it was not easy.
All right, interesting. So we have two pick switches, me for the co-main and you for the main. How about that? I can definitely see it one way or the other. It's a tough fight, and I'm really trying not to let my anti-Du Plessis bias leak in here because I don't like him as a fighter. I never have. I never will. People who fight like him shouldn't win at high levels, but he has and he does. And it's undeniable at this point, but I still think Izzy, if he shows up to even resemble his former self, I think that he should get it done. But
I don't disagree, by the way. I mean, I may regret doing this, and
right.
I you don't know how it pains me to go against Mike. Like I just I can't, I hate doing this. He's always so right on. I just have this feeling about Du Plessis that he's going to do it, and I'm a narrative guy. I'm on Du Plessis. Sorry.
Look, one of the things I think you have to consider: what if Adesanya's career's over? He took a horrible loss.
That's my point. That's what I'm considering here.
Yeah.
What if he's done? I'm on Du Plessis. I changed my pick. I'm not going to waffle anymore.
I understand it. I mean, the guy takes a horrible loss. He takes all this time off. What if this is? I mean, to a much lesser extent, but what if this is like a Ronda Rousey situation where it's like,
never know.
They're in the best shape, and then they go in and get killed again, and then that's the end of it. So
I mean, you can't handicap narrative, and that's the issue.
Yeah.
If I encourage you to go watch, Mike did a video, it's free, it's not behind a paywall. Go watch his video about breaking down this fight. He spends a lot of time breaking it down, and everything he says makes a lot of sense, except you can't handicap narrative. You just can't. So if the narrative works my way, I think I'm going to feel pretty good. But if you take narrative and just throw it out the door, Izzy should probably win. But I'm on.
Oh, I accidentally took you off the stage there, Joe.
Okay.
But
hot takes.
That makes it definitely an intriguing bout for sure.
Yep.
But that will wrap up the card for this week. Hot take is, of course, just the two of us, and anyone in chat who wants a hot take. If you're new to the show, of course, we find lines that are juiced up and we think have a better chance of coming in than that line indicates. We present them here for you. Mine is going to be quick and dirty. Israel Adesanya wins by KO/TKO at plus 325. That is my hot take for this week. Joe, do you have a hot take for us?
Yeah, so I kind of buried the lead. Santos by sub is plus 500.
I knew you were going there.
If you want to get a little bit of extra juice, Santos by sub plus 500 parlayed with Walker at plus 110 will give you plus 1160.
All right. Cool. Ty tells us the champion wins 60% of the time as an underdog. So that is interesting there. A little bit more. I don't know if that's narrative or stats. Maybe that's a little bit of a blend of the two. But good note there. Hot takes going once, going twice, everybody in chat. And we are sold. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the fights this week. I hope that they turn out better than last week. Joe disappears.
I'm here.
There he is. He's still here. Coming in and out. All right. So before Joe disintegrates, let's say our goodbyes here. Thank you all so much for watching. Best of luck in your contest. We will see you for the next pay-per-view, which should again feature everybody at full strength and Drake back with us. But until then, again, good luck in your contest, and thank you all so much for watching.
Peace.